everyone, so this video is a little bit different. As I'm filming this, it's the beginning of January 2023 and everyone is getting along with their favorite books of the year videos and stuff, and I'm getting excited about some of them, and then I thought, you know what will be cool, to do some sort of like video vlog thing in which I read the favorites of some of my favorite booktubers, and then I can highlight those booktubers and also see if I agree with them or not. And today Laurane from Reading with Laurane has put out her list of her favorite books of 2022, so I thought I will start with her because she's my friend and I love her, and we also have very similar reading tastes, so it makes sense for me to start with her. And she had 5 books in her list, and then some honorable mentions. So from the books that the 5 books that she said they were her favorites, I have read 3 of them already, which means that I only have 2 left to read. The first one that she mentioned is The Color Purple by Alice Walker. I read this several years ago and I enjoyed it. I think that Alice Walker is a very good writer. However, this book particularly for me had some issues with the pacing. I found the middle section quite slow, so it was very interesting and then it slowed down like a lot and then it became interesting again. But other than that, I think it was very powerful, and I understand why it's becoming a modern classic. And when I read this book, I remember that I wanted to read something else from Alice Walker because I enjoyed it enough to know more about the author. So I agree with her on this one. It's a very good book. It didn't work for me particularly as much as I wanted it to work, but it was still a very good book. The second one that she had in her list was Tom of Sand by Gitanjali. And this won the International Booker this year, and I have also read it. I have a review up for it, so I will link it down below. And again, this one was one that I could appreciate that it's a very good book. It was just not exactly for me, so it's not in my favorites, but it's a very good book and I will recommend to everybody. So this one is about an old woman in India that is kind of starting to lose her mind, and there is all kinds of magical realism things going on, and the partition and all of that. For me, it was a little bit disjointed and I wanted more politics on it, and there was a lot of politics at the end of the book but not so much at the beginning, and it's a fairly big book. So yeah, there were some issues with it that didn't click with me 100%, and I also think that a lot of things went over my head because of the cultural differences, but I recognize it's a really good book and I think that it fully deserves the International Booker Prize, and I fully understand why it's in her list. So to that, I mean, they are not my absolute favorites, but I could 100% see why they are in her favorite list. And then the other one that I have read from her list is Bewilderment by Richard Powers, and this one is one of my favorites. It was in my favorites from 2021 list last year because it was in the Booker 2021, and I know a lot of people didn't like it, but for me it was just like so warm, and so it was like the kinder version of the Overstory, and I love the Overstory. So yeah, this one was great. I'm not sure about the ending, and she also mentioned that, but everything else, like, it was just, I just wanted to keep reading, and it was great, and I loved it as well. So this one we 100% agree. And so obviously the first thing that I did today after seeing that video was to go to the library and get the other 2 that she had on her list. So the first one is Transcendent Kingdom by Yea Gyasi, and obviously I have heard a lot of things about this. It was in a lot of people's lists last year, and I was a bit ambivalent about reading it because I have read Homecoming by Yea Gyasi and I thought it was okay, but nothing super special. But this one is supposed to be very different, so let's hope that this one is good. And the other one that she had in her list was Revolusi, and this is by David van Reybrouck, and this is in Dutch, and you cannot see a lot from the cover, but Revolusi, and it's a big chunky book, non-fiction about Indonesian history and like the colonization of Indonesia by the Dutch, which sounds super interesting, but it's going to also be a very slow read, I think, because it's big and it's in Dutch. But I'm gonna read it because Laurane loves it apparently, and also I find that non-fiction is easier for me to read in other languages because it's not so much about the beautiful writing, but it's about facts, and it also tends to have words that are more universal. Like there are certain words about science and things like that, and this is history, so I'm not sure, but in science especially, like a lot of words are similar in a lot of languages because it's something that is like more modern. So for example, the chemical elements tend to be similarly called in many languages, and like enzymes for the body and things like that. So I don't know if the history will be the same, but I think that it will be. I find non-fiction easier to read in languages I don't speak like super well because it's not about the writing so much. So I'm hoping that this is okay and I can understand everything. So yeah, my goal for this video is to read these two books and update you on them and see how much I agree with Laurane about her best books of 2022, which so far the three I've read, I think she has a very good taste. So we will see with these two. Hello everyone. So it has been a few days since the last time I talked to you, but I started Robo Lucy by Van Reybrouck, and this is about the history of Indonesia and how that translates to the world. And at the beginning, in the introduction, he says, you know, we all know something about the biggest countries in the world. Like we all know kind of some presidents and general geography of the US and some like who Putin is. We know even who Gandhi is. So we know things about the history and the politics of the biggest countries. But Indonesia is one of the biggest countries in the world, and very little is in the general culture of what Indonesia is and how it's governed and their history. And this book is kind of trying to fill in that gap and tell the story of Indonesia and the things that are like how that affected the world and how the world affected Indonesia, and like that relationship of the importance of Indonesia within the world because it's one of the biggest countries in the world. And I like that he highlights that the fact that Indonesia is actually very important in the big scale of the world because there are a lot of people in Indonesia, so it makes no sense that we know nothing about it. So yeah, I'm overall enjoying the tone of the book. Also, there was another part, I think in the first chapter, that he talks about there was an interview that was done with different people from different countries that had colonized in the past, and it seemed that the Dutch were among the most proud of their colonizing era rather than ashamed of it. And that was a very interesting fact, and it's also something that he's trying to explore of why that is, and it's clearly not because they were not violent and racist when they colonized people, so why are they still proud that they were colonizers? Yeah, that's something also interesting in this book. And I also appreciate that there is a part in which he's questioned, like, well, he's I'm not sure if he's Dutch or Belgian, but he's definitely not Indonesian, and he says like, well, why do you think that you are the right person to talk about this, right? Why are you talking about this? Why does it matter to you? And he brings that point back of, well, Indonesia is very important. If Indian person is studying the history of the British Empire, you would not think that's weird, right? and the other way around as well. So why is it that this is weird? I appreciated that he addressed that head on, because at the beginning when I first picked up this book I was thinking like, well, yeah, I would have preferred this to be written by an Indonesian, and I think I still would, but it is not weird, I think, that a Dutch or Belgian person is talking about Indonesia just because it should be of general interest to all the people in the world, and that's the whole point of the book. So yeah, so far I'm enjoying it. The fact that it's written in Dutch is a bit difficult for me, but I am understanding enough and I am following enough. So it takes me a bit longer to go through stuff, and it also, I don't get 100% of what I'm reading, but I think I'm getting the general ideas that he's putting out. I will continue reading this, and I will update you next when I read a little bit more. I'm in page 129 at the moment, and it's without the references and stuff. It's 222 pages, so I'm about 20% of the way in. I'll let you know again when something more interesting happens. Hello everyone, so it has been about a week since last time I talked to you, but it has been a busy week, but I finally finished Robo Lucy. And this was very interesting. I mean, it was really difficult for me to go through because it's a big non-fiction book about history, but also because it's written in Dutch, and Dutch is my third language, so it's not as natural for me to read in Dutch. But overall, I think I understand why Laurane has it in her favorites. I really enjoyed the introduction and the second part of the book, or the last part of the book, because the author has more of his personality and his opinions on them. So it's basically going through the history of Indonesia, mostly in the 20th century. And in the introduction, the author does go a lot into snarky territory about how he feels about how people treat Indonesia and its history. So I like that. And then after that, it does go more into the general history of Indonesia and the actual facts, which was fine. I mean, that part was necessary in the book, but it was denser and it was less enjoyable to read in a way, less easy, and it flew a little bit slower and not so easy. And then at the end, we do go back to that tone of snarkiness and things, so I enjoyed that as well. So yeah, overall I understand why Laurane has it in its favorites, and I'm glad that I read it, but I think that because of the language barrier and because of the how dense this was, I didn't extract as much from it as I could have, but yeah, overall I'm glad I read it, which means that I'm moving on to Transcendent Kingdom by Yea Gyasi. Haven't started this yet. I probably will start it tomorrow, which is a Saturday, and try to read throughout the weekend. I think I'm expecting this to go fast somehow. I don't know, the cover and the fact that I've read Yea Gyasi before makes me think that this is going to be an easy read in a way. I might be wrong about that, but we will see about that. But yeah, I think this is definitely going to be easier than this. So yes, I'm looking forward to this, and I'll talk to you when I have finished it, probably. Hello everyone, so today is Tuesday, and yesterday night I finished Transcendent Kingdom by Yea Gyasi. And I liked it, but yeah, I had also some small issues with it. Not issues as in the book is bad, but issues as in it didn't work for me. So this is basically about Gifty, and Gifty, it's an American woman from Ghanaian descent. Her mom was Ghanaian, and her brother also was born in Ghana, although he grew up in the US mostly. We go back and forth on her life story. So she had a brother that died because of addiction, and it started as an oxytocin addiction. Yeah, and then her mom also suffers from depression, partly because of the death of her brother, but also from other issues that she had with their parents and stuff like that. And then she's a PhD student on addiction as well. She's studying addiction on mice, and she does have kind of issues trying to connect with other people, so we also explore that. And then on the other side, her mom was very religious, and she's also struggling with combining that religion to her scientific background. So those are some of the main topics that this book addresses, and some of them worked for me and some of them didn't. So for example, I found the discussion about how addiction happens and if we are really in control of it. Like, often we think about addiction as in having the willpower to stop it, but sometimes it's like the chemistry in your brain doesn't even allow you to have that thought, to control what you can control and what you cannot control. Things like that I found very interesting. But then the parts about religion, honestly, I didn't find them that insightful. Maybe it's because I'm not a religious person. I never grew up religious, and I never had to ask myself those questions. But in general, I have found other books about religion more thoughtful than what she was exploring here. I think it was very surface level in some parts. And then the racism, for example, it was also interesting to me, especially when she talked about how especially her brother was classified in a certain category that didn't really fit what happened. So for example, she says, like, okay, he was a black young man that grew up with his father mostly in a relatively low class background. And then he got addicted, and that's what people like see, and they don't see how he was a good kid, and he was playing basketball, and he was like on his way to college through basketball, and then he had an injury, and he was given a medication in principle, and that's where his addiction came from, and that's not in the narrative of the numbers. So I really like that part as well. But yeah, then if you go to Gifty and her relationship with other people, like with her colleagues and her boyfriend or whatever, that's very very stereotypical of like scientists and stuff saying, oh, they don't know how to relate to other people. I found that very stereotypical, and I found the ending very neatly wrapped. It didn't have to be that neat, in my opinion. So yeah, I do have positives, and I'm really glad I read it, but I also have negatives for it. It's not going to be in my favorites of the year like it was for Laurane, but I think still it's a good book, and I understand why she liked it so much. It's just some of the elements in it didn't work for me that well. So yeah, that's the end of this video. I hope you liked it. Let me know if you have read any of these books, if you also like them, or if you didn't like some things about them, let me know. And I'm planning to do this kind of video for a couple more people that I'm interested in their favorite list of the year. But if you know anyone that you think might be interesting to do that for, please let me know in the comments. I would love to know. I had a lot of fun doing this, see if I align with the favorites of other booktubers. So yeah, let me know, and until next video, bye!